This is James Dutton for Round 8 Boxing. Delighted to be joined with Jamie Moore. Jamie, how are you, mate?
I'm all right, thanks. You?
Stuff, yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. Let's get straight into the big news that came out today. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. Exhibition in November, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis. What do you make of it?
I haven't seen that. I'm uh, I'm trying my best to stay off social media. To be honest with you, I'm not succeeding that well. But while I was away on holiday, I've been my phone off for 2 weeks, and I enjoyed the break from it. And it's slowly creeping back. I'm trying to stay away from the light, but yeah, I've not seen that. So interesting. He's so much bigger than Gervonta, like so much bigger. So I don't know how much of an exhibition it'll be, but because I'm assuming if and when he lands on Gervonta, he ain't going to take it well. I'm sure he's going to set about him. So so that should be interesting, just for the fact of the size difference. To be honest,
I mean, a lot of people are already saying Tank's going to knock him out. He's world champion, but at 135 pounds, Jake weighed over 200 pounds in his last fight. Just
yeah.
how much of a factor is that fight, regardless of how much of a novice Jake Paul is?
Yeah, listen, these weight divisions for a reason, and you know when I think was it Logan Paul who fought Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition, and he had moments where he had success, literally just because of the size of him. And I think he's a bit bigger naturally than Jake Paul, so probably the size difference is around about the same. So so regardless of how good you are as a fighter, he's got some level of ability, and he's picked that up over the last few years when he's been around the game. And regardless what you say about him, he's obviously very smart. He's a very good businessman, but you can't deny, regardless of whether you like what he's done or not, he's applied himself and he's committed himself to the sport exactly as anybody or any other professional does. Um, he's been fortunate enough to have enough revenue to get the best coaches, the best training teams, the best strength and conditioners, the best dietitians. So he's had a lot of help, a lot of people can't get. But the fact that he's dedicating himself to it is no easy feat, and in many ways you've got to take your hat off to him. It's risky for Gervonta because of just for the sheer size of him. His weight divisions for a reason.
Could Jake Paul knock out Gervonta Davis?
It's just crazy to even think about, really, isn't it? But you'd assume. I have heard rumours about these clauses in the contracts about the certain things can take place and stuff, which I'm not keen on because I'm just a believer in if you decide to fight somebody, you stick to the rules and may the best man win. Um, with it being an exhibition, I'd imagine there's some type of clause in there. Um, but who knows? You never know. Do I believe he can? Just because of the sheer size of him. Um, you'd like to think that Gervonta would be smart enough and cute enough and have enough ring craft to avoid those situations, but it's a fight. Anything can happen. So just for the size of him, I'd say yeah, he could.
What's it say about the integrity of boxing? Obviously, you've been in boxing a long, long time, Jamie, and I know how
Yeah.
much you love boxing. It's a real passion of yours. It's your life, really. What's it say about the integrity of boxing when the world champion, 135 pound, is taking on a former Disney Channel star and YouTuber? Yes, he's applied himself and dedicated himself to boxing, but he's also
It's,
a celebrity.
it's yeah, yeah. Listen, it's a difficult one for me because obviously the tradition of boxing, it's changed a lot. Social media's changed everything. Not just in boxing, in life in general. All aspects of life. It's changed the whole scope of the world. And first of all, I'm a believer that life's fucking hard. Like let's be honest. To get by in the world and to be successful, is fucking difficult, and it takes a lot of commitment, hard work, determination, sacrifices. If anybody in any walk of life finds themselves in a position where they can earn money, and it's a lot of money, and it's an easier way than it would be if it takes 15, 20 years, and they're offered that opportunity, I take my hat off to them. And I think, fucking fair play to you, snatch it with both hands. Because life's too short, and those opportunities might never pass you by again. So it's like winning a lottery ticket in many ways. If you're doing something anyway and you're getting paid, 600 grand, £1 million, whatever, you're already still earning good money. If someone turns around to you and says you can have an exhibition with this guy, a bit bigger than you, but you can have 15 million or 20 million, you're going to go, Jesus Christ, I might never earn that for the rest of my career in the next 10 years. I'd assume Gervonta's earned a lot of money. I'm just saying, not using him as an example, but somebody else gets offered this opportunity, they're not going to say no. And that's the problem we've got with it, is people are offered big opportunities. They can't say no because it's life changing. I understand that. I just agree with everybody else that it's not good for boxing in terms of the profile and the way boxing's viewed. But as long as you try not to blur the two together and you distinguish what is an actual top level world class boxing match and what's just in many cases like an exhibition anyway, then you've got to take it for what it is.
Absolutely. And let's move on to some proper boxing. Dave Allen, Makhmudov. Dave said he picked this fight because it scared him the most. It sounds crazy, but to talk to me about this fight.
Yeah, it's true. It's exactly the reason why I picked him. I sort of get it. He's at that stage of his career, not just the stage of his career, but in general. Dave's spoken openly about his struggle or his troubles with committing himself to the sport in terms of from a training point of view, dedication point of view. I can't fault him for this phase of his career where he sort of came to me. It had sort of gone on and off for about 4 years where he'd trained with us. The fight fell through behind closed doors in lockdown. He decided to knock it on the head. He came back to me about 6 weeks before the Fraser, 5 weeks before the Fraser Clark fight, and said, "Listen, I've been offered this fight. It's in 5.5 weeks time, I think it was. I've took it. Will you train me for it?" And in hindsight, it was probably thinking, I've not really got much of a chance because I'm not going to be fit, and I know Jamie won't let me get hurt. I think that's probably what his line of thinking was, and he was right. I wouldn't have let him get hurt. I let him stay in there as long as he possibly had a chance of winning because he can whack. But when he got to the point in the fight where he really had no chance of winning, I wasn't just going to let him stay in there for another 4 or 5 rounds and just get beat up for no reason. So I pulled him out, and then he had some little tick over fights, 4 rounders, just staying busy. And the idea was he just said just in case a big fight comes up. So when the Johnny Fisher fight came up, I got to know him so much over those sort of 2 or 3 years. And I said to him, "Listen, Dave, I will train you for it, but you need to commit yourself properly because this is a dangerous fight. It can really punch, and I don't really want to be involved unless you're going to take it properly, seriously." And he was like, "I promise you, Jay, I'm on it. I need to do this. I need to change my life. I've got kids now, blah, blah, blah." And God, has he committed himself. And I'm pretty sure he fucking hates it still. But in many ways, he enjoys the stuff around it. We've got a great gym of fighters. They're all top lads. They all get on well. And I think they help each other. They drag each other through the tough days. So he is in a position now, massively in a position where he can change his life forever. Something what he probably thought 18 months ago was never going to be a possibility, and he's grabbing it with both hands. And I tell you what, I just wish everything happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that, and I don't think Dave would have listened to me or anybody when he was 24, 25. And I did see an interview once about him, and he said the only person I've ever listened to is Jamie. Now, I know what Dave's like, and I feel like I know him inside out. That's a massive compliment to me. I don't know why he listens to me. No, I really don't know, but he just does. I don't know what he said. I don't know if it's a respect thing, but I just get him. I just, I really do. I understand him, and the fear of him losing is what's making him train exactly how he needs to train. Even though he committed himself properly to the Johnny Fisher fight, he could have been a lot fitter. We just didn't have time. And he's done exactly what he needed to do in between. He's kept fit in between. He's carried that through into training camps afterwards. And God, the difference in him. And everyone can now see and starting to understand why 10, 12 years ago, people were saying to him when he was sparring, David A and people like that, listen, you commit yourself to this sport and you'll be a world champion. And, he hasn't done that. He's not been a world champion, but it's not too late. And he's getting better. I always talk for my fighters, I always talk about building a base, and then dependent on how big your base is, depends on, the accomplishments and how far you can get and how high you can climb. And I keep saying to him, nobody knows your ceiling, because nobody knows how big your base can get yet, because it's still growing, because he's picked up all that ring craft over the years, and now he's adding fitness and finesse and sharpness and timing. He's got so much ring craft. So honestly, the sky's the limit, and I honestly believe he'll beat Makhmudov. I really do. I think, I know he's a dangerous guy, but it's not like he doesn't get it. And I promise you, Dave Allen, fit, strong, ready to change his family's life, is a dangerous proposition.
Just out of interest, do you know who else was on that list that was off of Dave?
There was a lot of good fighters on that list, and these fighters what have been spoke about, and in future they still, I know Pulev we was trying to make Pulev for the WBA regular, and apparently he was in dispute in his contract, so there was no way of making that fight. Obviously, there was talk of Wilder and Parker and stuff like that, and that's the position he's put himself in. But I did say, I know we can't turn those fights down if the opportunity comes up, because they might never come again. But I would rather him have another fight or two beforehand, because if we keep building on this momentum, what we've got, I've no idea how good he can be. I don't even think he understands how good he can be. And he's got a much, much better chance of pulling it off when he gets that opportunity.
Do you think he can still become a world champion?
I do. I genuinely believe he can. And that's not because of what we've seen already, even though we have lately seen, glimpses of how good he can be. But it's the potential of what he's got because of the way he's committing himself to the sport now.
I want to move on to another heavyweight. Daniel Dubois splitting with Don Charles after losing to Usyk. They had a good run together as a team. Um, a lot of times we see fighters leave trainers after a loss. What do you make of the split?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think Don Charles is, to blame at all for the loss. Obviously, Usyk's an absolute legend, probably going to go down as one of the greatest heavyweights. For me, probably top three at the moment. So there's no disgrace there. Fighters do this. It's happened for years and years where they need mentally to have a change, because they probably. I'm assuming it's. I never had this, by the way, because my relationship and trust in Oliver was never questioned. So but I do understand fighters, especially ones who haven't had a long relationships with the coaches. When they lose a fight, it's like they need to sort of rejuvenate themselves and refresh themselves and get a bit of new information off somebody different. So I understand it, and I don't believe you ever stop learning. You know, I feel like I'm still learning all the time. There's always something new to learn. So, so Don Charles has done a fantastic job, and I've no idea what his plans are, but he's young enough, he's good enough. I know there's been a lot of questions about his temperament, and did he stay down and stuff like that. I do believe he could have got up, but there's a lot of people saying what if you've not got it, you've not got it, and I'm not a believer in that. I honestly believe that from negative experiences and bad experiences like that, you can, as long as you're honest with yourself, you look yourself in the mirror and you go, I fucking could have done better there. Then I believe that you can improve on that. Doesn't happen overnight, but you have to be honest with yourself and you have to learn from your mistakes. Because all fighters, to some extent, are game because that's why we do it in the first place. It's just about not letting your mind run away with you and learning to control your emotions. And you basically just got to draw a line under every single time something doesn't go right for you and go, let's start again. Let's start again. Let's start again. If you have to do it 100 times in a fucking fight, it doesn't matter. So there's definitely stuff what he can learn from other coaches and improve. I'm not saying he couldn't have learned it with Don Charles. He must just feel that he needs a little bit of a change to rejuvenate himself.
Is it not a bit alarming to see since he turned pros with Martin Bowers and since he left Martin, he's had, I think, four trainers. You got Mark Tibbs, Shane McGuigan, Don Charles, and now apparently going to Tony Sims is the rumour. Is that alarming?
It's not ideal. I do believe when you've got a fighter who is as good as Daniel, um, then in those difficult situations, when you're in that corner and you're having conversations with your coach, when your coach is trying to talk you through it, and those difficult moments in fights, when I looked Oliver in the face, whatever he was telling me, I trusted 100% what he was saying. I wouldn't have even known at the time whether it was the right information or whether it was bad advice. But I was that committed to it that I followed it through anyway, and I did it with the type of attitude where what he's just told me is 100% going to win me this fight, and a lot of the times it did, and that's what a trusting relationship with a coach brings you. So I do think that when you've built that relationship over, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years to build, and for that understanding. I could I could basically have a conversation with Oliver without any of us speaking. He could look at me and he could know what was going through my mind. That's what I'm talking about. That those types of relationships, when you trust someone implicitly like that, you're more likely to follow through and commit to the game plan and the tactics what they've set out. And it's going to have been difficult for him to build those relationships if he's jumping ship as often as he is. So maybe in the long run he'll find that with whoever he moves to, and he can build that type of relationship where that confidence in his coach might be the difference in him being able to force himself through those different situations in the future.
Absolutely. Jamie, obviously, Manchester boxing has always been massive. It's always been a fan favorite fighters from Manchester, yourself included. Big Manchester derby coming up in November. Brad Ray, Lyndon Arthur for the European title. What do you make of that fight?
Yeah, great fight, great fight. Um, Lyndon's such a well schooled, sharp shooting. His jab's phenomenal, can punch, beautiful right hand. Brad Ray is had such bad luck recently, And I'm so happy for him. He's such a great lad. He's been down to our gym sparring so many times, and I've known him for many years now. So I'm absolutely over the moon for him. So it's a real good clash of styles for me. You know, it's you've got Lyndon, who's the boxer, back foot fighter, sharpshooter, really difficult to close down, dangerous puncher. You've got Brad, who is good body puncher, sets a nice tempo, nice work rate, applies that pressure, and really drags you into a dogfight and dogs you out. It's a perfect blend of styles for me, I believe any of them can win the fight, depending on who implements the tactics on the night in the right way. I think the first 3 rounds are going to be really important because if Lyndon gets a foothold, gets into a rhythm, starts keeping Brad on the outside and he doesn't have any success, then he's going to be chasing the fight. If Brad can implement his style on Lyndon and start to, get close to him early and be physical with him and drag him into a bit of a dogfight early on, then he sets the tempo and the tone for the fight then. So yeah, it's a great fight. It's a really good fight. Great Manchester fight. Red versus blue, and may the best man win.
What's that crowd and atmosphere going to be like for the pair of them? That almost like I suppose, the fourth man in the ring, that extra boost for them. What's it going to be like in Manchester that night?
It'd be ace. Like you say, Manchester boxing's always had that sort of history, that tradition. Um, Both lads are going to sell tickets for it because everyone's talking about it. So it should create a great atmosphere. And I don't think I'll have anyone on the bill that night. And I very rarely go to a fight if I don't need to be there because I'm not that much boxing. But I'll definitely be at that one.
And just finally, Jamie, last one from me. Another fight coming up a bit later on than that in November. Eubank Ben 2. After the first one, how'd you see the second one going?
But I tell you what a fight! And never in a million years did I believe, after all the build up and hype to it, it would live up to the expectations, and it more than delivered and some. So I'm really looking forward to the rematch. I feel like at some point, Eubank, with age, miles on the clock, and weight making, is going to start to decline. And for his sake, you wouldn't wish it that it was in this rematch because Conor Ben, it was the first time at that weight moving up, and he looked comfortable. He looked comfortable there. His head movement was really, really impressive. I thought, I really believed beforehand that the old saying, ultimately a good big one will always beat a good little one. But his defensive skills in the fight allowed him not to allow that size difference to be as much of a factor. And now you've got a much longer time scale where he's been allowed to fill out into the weight and grow into it and build that natural strength. And then depending on how much the first fight is, the impact has took on Eubank, plus the weight making and stuff like that, then all those things added together make it such an interesting fight.
With those factors, does that make this fight a 50-50, or does it almost swing into Conor Ben's favour at 60-40?
I'd say I had Eubank winning by a couple of rounds. It was close, but I would say that with everything what I've just mentioned and spoke about there, I'd probably say it's a 50-50. I'd say, Eubank's capable of dragging it out again, but also by the same rule, there's a few things what Connor could you know adjust and learn from the first fight, implementing the rematch, which could bring him out on top. So what a fight it's going to be.
Absolutely, some exciting times coming up. Really good schedule in boxing. Jamie, thank you for your time. As always, a pleasure.
No problem. Cheers, Dave.